My name is Emma, and I grew up with my younger sister Olivia in what felt like a prison disguised as a home. The 8-year age gap between us might as well have been an ocean, not just in years, but in how differently our parents treated us. Every morning started the same way. While everyone else was still sleeping, my alarm would go off at 5:30 a.m. I'd drag myself out of bed, knowing that if breakfast wasn't ready on time, there'd be consequences. My hands would shake sometimes as I cracked eggs and toasted bread, wondering if today's breakfast would meet their impossible standards. "Emma," my mother's sharp voice would cut through the morning silence. "The coffee is too strong again. Can't you do anything right?" I'd mumble sorry and keep my head down, knowing better than to argue. Meanwhile, Olivia would skip into the kitchen whenever she felt like it, and Mom would smile at her like she was an angel descended from heaven. School should have been my escape, but it wasn't. While other kids hung out with friends or joined clubs, I had to rush to pick up Olivia from her elementary school. Every single day, no exceptions. But Mom, Sarah invited me to study group after school. I tried once. "Absolutely not," she snapped. "Your sister needs you. And who knows what you'll really be doing? Probably meeting boys." That was their obsession, keeping me away from boys. I couldn't even wear my hair down because Mom said it would attract their attention. Every morning, she'd watch as I braided it so tight my scalp hurt. Jeans were forbidden, along with any skirts above the knee or blouses with short sleeves. I looked like I'd walked out of a different century. The house had to be spotless, always. Laundry, cleaning, cooking, it all fell on me. I'd spend hours scrubbing floors and washing clothes while Olivia played in her room, making more messes for me to clean up. If I slipped up on any of their endless rules, the punishment was usually going without lunch or dinner. "Maybe hunger will teach you obedience," Dad would say, locking away my plate while I watched everyone else eat. We lived like hermits. No friends could visit, and my parents never invited anyone over. Even relatives were kept away because my parents claimed they all lived in sin. I never understood what that meant. What confused me most were their mysterious evening and weekend disappearances. They'd dress in their best clothes and leave, never explaining where they went. When I asked, Dad's face would darken. "It's none of your business," he'd growl. "When you turn 18, you'll join us at the meetings. You'll understand then." The worst part wasn't the endless chores or the strict rules, it was the complete lack of appreciation. No matter how hard I worked, how spotless the house was, or how well I took care of Olivia, my parents treated me like their personal maid. Not once did I hear a thank you or see a smile of approval. Olivia picked up on their attitude quickly. By the time she was 8, she was treating me the same way they did, like I was nothing more than the help. She'd drop her dirty clothes on the floor, leave dishes scattered around her room, and roll her eyes when I asked her to clean up after herself. One evening, after spending hours cleaning up yet another mess Olivia had made, I finally worked up the courage to confront Dad. I found him in his study, reading his usual religious texts. "Why do you treat me so differently from Olivia?" I asked, my voice shaking. He looked up at me, his eyes hard. "You want to know why? Because you're the spitting image of my sister, same defiant look, same willful nature. She lived in sin her whole life, moving from man to man without marriage. We won't let you follow her path to debauchery." "But I haven't done anything wrong," I protested. "Your sister," he continued as if I hadn't spoken, "she's like your mother, modest, decent, pure. She doesn't need the strict guidance you do. The devil is already trying to claim you, just like he claimed my sister." The unfairness of it all was suffocating. While I wore ankle-length skirts and high-necked blouses, Olivia bounced around in jeans and t-shirts. While I rushed home after school to do chores, she played with her friends until dinner time. When she broke rules or played pranks, my parents would laugh it off. If I so much as spoke in the wrong tone, I was punished. Things came to a head during my junior year of high school. College applications were coming up, and I tried to discuss it with my parents over dinner. "Mom, I was thinking about applying to state university." Their English program. College? Mom cut me off with a harsh laugh. That's not a woman's place. Your purpose is to marry young and have children. That's what God intended. But I want to study. Dad slammed his hand on the table. Enough. I won't waste money sending you to college so you can turn out like my sister. I already have a suitable young man in mind for you. When you turn 18, you'll be married. End of discussion. My stomach turned to ice. They had already planned out my entire future without even consulting me. Marriage to some stranger they'd chosen, probably someone from their mysterious religious group. That night, I lay in bed and made a decision. If they wouldn't help me go to college, I'd find a way myself. The next day, I stayed late at school, telling my parents I had to help clean the classroom as punishment. They approved of anything that involved cleaning. Instead, I met with my guidance counselor. I need to know everything about scholarships, I told her. And I need to keep all the paperwork at school. For the next few months, I worked in secret. I wrote essays during lunch breaks, gathered recommendation letters from teachers, and documented every academic achievement and volunteer project. I joined the debate club and math team, telling my parents they were mandatory study groups. Every competition I won, every academic Olympiad I participated in, I carefully filed away the certificates where my parents would never find them. I knew my parents would do anything to stop me from going to college, including hiding acceptance letters. One sleepless night, I realized there was only one person who could help me, my aunt, Dad's sinful sister whom we weren't allowed to talk about. I found her address in an old address book and wrote her a letter, explaining everything. 2 days later, she called me at school. Of course I'll help you, Emma, she said warmly. Have all your college letters sent to my address. With that piece of my escape plan in place, time seemed to speed up. Before I knew it, graduation day arrived, followed by prom night. While other girls wore sparkly dresses and professional makeup, I stood in front of my mirror in the plainest dress I could find. No makeup, hair in its usual strict braid, I looked like a nun who'd wandered into the wrong party. Even in my modest dress, I couldn't escape my parents' criticism. When I got home, Mom was waiting up. Disgraceful, she spat. That dress shows your ankles and calves. Might as well walk the streets naked. Go pray for forgiveness. A week later, my aunt called during school hours. Emma, I have news. Good news. Can you come over? My heart started racing. I completely forgot about picking up Olivia. For the first time in years, I put myself first. I practically ran to my aunt's house. She was waiting on her porch, waving an envelope. You did it, sweetheart. Full scholarship to State University. I grabbed the letter with trembling hands. There it was in black and white, my ticket to freedom. I burst into tears as my aunt hugged me. I'm so proud of you, she said. You deserve this chance. My happiness lasted exactly as long as it took to get home. Olivia was waiting with my parents, her face twisted in a smug smile. She didn't pick me up, she announced. I followed her. She went to Aunt Susan's house, the one you said we're not supposed to talk to. Dad's face turned purple. You dare disobey us, consorting with that woman? I got into college, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Full scholarship. If you choose college over your family, Dad growled, you're no longer our daughter. Pack your things and get out tonight. I went upstairs to pack, Mom hovering to make sure I didn't take anything they'd bought me. I shoved my clothes into a duffel bag, at least the modest clothing would work for laundry days at college. The laptop stays, Mom snapped. We paid for it. Oh good, Olivia clapped her hands. I needed a new laptop. Thanks, Emma. I looked at my little sister's gleeful face as she celebrated my exile, and something inside me hardened. Let her have the laptop. Where I was going, I wouldn't need reminders of this prison they called home. Moving in with Aunt Susan felt like stepping into another world. Her small house was bright and welcoming, filled with colorful artwork and comfortable furniture, everything my parents would have called worldly and sinful. "First thing tomorrow, we're getting you a job," she announced my first morning there. "You need your own money now." I started working at the Silver Spoon Cafe the next week. For the first time in my life, I was earning my own money, making my own choices. The other waitresses became my friends, teaching me about makeup and fashion, things I'd never been allowed to explore. "You can't keep wearing those ankle-length dresses to work," Aunt Susan said one Saturday. "Let's go shopping." She held up a knee-length skirt in a pretty blue color. I stared at my reflection in the dressing room mirror, barely recognizing myself. My hand shook as I touched the hem that fell above my knees. "Try these too," Aunt Susan said, handing me a pair of jeans. I'd never worn pants in my life. When I put them on, I almost cried. They were comfortable, practical, everything I'd been denied. "One more stop," Aunt Susan announced after we'd bought a whole new wardrobe. She drove to a hair salon. I touched my long braid nervously. It had been my prison for so long, this rope of hair I wasn't allowed to wear loose. "Cut it," I said suddenly. "All of it." The hairdresser worked her magic, transforming my severe braid into a modern, shoulder-length style, with layers that framed my face. When she finished, I couldn't stop running my fingers through my hair, marveling at how light my head felt. Summer passed in a blur of work shifts, new experiences, and preparation for college. In August, I moved into my dorm room in another city, terrified and excited. College was everything I'd dreamed of and more. I threw myself into my studies, joining study groups and academic clubs without having to lie about where I was going. I made real friends who knew nothing about my past and accepted me as I was. 4 years flew by. I graduated with honors, my aunt cheering in the audience. My parents never called, never wrote. Sometimes I'd see Olivia's posts on social media. She seemed to be living the life they'd wanted, still at home, still following their rules. Then Aunt Susan met James. He was kind, funny, and clearly adored her. When she told me they were getting married and moving to Australia for his work, I felt my heart sink a little. She was my only family now. "We'll video chat all the time," she promised. "But Emma, you've built your own life now. You don't need me anymore." She was right. I had a good job in the city, my own apartment, and I'd started dating Michael, a software engineer I met through friends. For the first time in my life, I was truly happy. I was at work, reviewing quarterly reports at my desk, when my phone rang with an unfamiliar local number. "Is this Emma Mitchell?" a grave voice asked. "I'm Officer Roberts from the Central Police Department. I'm sorry to inform you that there's been a car accident involving your parents." The funeral was held on a crisp autumn morning. The priest spoke about eternal life and God's mercy, words that reminded me too much of my childhood. Olivia cried loudly next to me, mascara running down her face, but I couldn't shed a single tear. I felt numb, disconnected, like I was watching someone else's funeral. A few days later, we met with the notary, Mr. Peterson. When he read the will, I wasn't surprised at all. Everything, the house and all their money, went to Olivia. She was always their perfect daughter, their precious angel who could do no wrong. Of course they'd leave her everything. What truly shocked me was Olivia's reaction. She literally jumped up from her chair, clapping her hands like a child at a birthday party. Her face lit up with excitement, all traces of funeral grief gone. "How much money is it exactly?" she asked eagerly, leaning forward over the notary's desk. "Can I sell the house right away? I want to know how much I can spend. I've been looking at cars online, and there's this cute convertible." The notary adjusted his glasses, looking at her with barely concealed disapproval. His voice was stern when he interrupted her excited babbling. "Miss Mitchell, I need to remind you that you won't have any access to your inheritance until you turn 18. And more importantly, as a minor, you need a legal guardian." Both the notary and Olivia turned to stare at me. I muttered an excuse and stepped into the hallway, pulling out my phone with trembling hands. I called Michael, my fiance, dreading the conversation I knew we had to have. We'd been planning our wedding for months, talking about our future together, our dreams of traveling and starting our own family. Michael, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, I need to postpone the wedding. Olivia needs a guardian, and if I don't take her, she'll end up in foster care. I can't let that happen. There was a long silence on the other end, so long I thought the call had dropped. 2 years, he finally said, his voice tight with tension. You want me to put our lives on hold for 2 years? We could make it work, I suggested desperately, pacing the empty hallway. She could live with us, we could be a family together. I know it's not what we planned, but... No, Emma, he cut me off firmly. I don't want to spend my years raising your teenage sister. I want us to have our own life, travel, be carefree. That was our plan, remember? Just you and me, building our future together. I looked down at my engagement ring, watching it sparkle under the fluorescent lights. I knew what I had to do, even though it was breaking my heart. I found a job at Mitchell & Associates, a marketing firm downtown. The pay was good, better than what I'd been making in my old city, and I threw myself into the work, partly to distract myself from my broken engagement, partly to provide for Olivia. The house felt different without our parents, but some things remained painfully familiar. I was still the one doing all the housework, just like before. Every morning, I'd wake up early to make breakfast before work. Every evening, I'd come home to cook dinner. Weekends were filled with cleaning, laundry, and grocery shopping. One Saturday morning, while scrubbing bathroom tiles, I finally asked Olivia why she never helped. She looked up from her phone, sprawled comfortably on the living room couch. I don't know how, she said with a shrug. Mom and Dad never taught me. You were always the one doing everything. I bit back a bitter laugh. Of course they hadn't taught her, they'd been too busy making sure their precious younger daughter didn't turn out like me. Despite everything, I wanted to be a better guardian than our parents had been. When Olivia's graduation approached, I spent nearly a month's salary on the perfect dress, a designer piece in soft blue silk that made her look like a princess. I hired a professional makeup artist and hairstylist, arranged a photo shoot, and booked a reservation at the fanciest restaurant in town. After the graduation excitement died down and Olivia turned 18, I started bringing up college applications over breakfast. I'd already researched several good universities within driving distance, and I was ready to help her with the application process. So, I said casually one morning, buttering her toast just the way she liked it, which colleges are you thinking about? State University has an excellent business program, or if you're interested in arts, Wellington College. I'm not going to college, Olivia interrupted, not looking up from her phone. I'm getting married, that's what Mom and Dad wanted for me. I stared at her, completely blindsided. Married? To who? I didn't even know you were dating anyone. Olivia finally looked up, a small smile playing on her lips. Mom and Dad arranged it when I was 15. They introduced me to him at one of their meetings. We've been talking online ever since, and we've met up a few times in person. My stomach churned. An arranged marriage? At 18? To someone our parents had chosen through their mysterious religious group? But do you actually like him? I asked carefully. Do you want to marry him? He's from a good family, Olivia replied, as if reciting from memory. Very wealthy, very respectable. Mom and Dad approved of him completely. We've already talked about the wedding plans. Then she surprised me further. I need your help with the preparations, she said, suddenly looking younger and more vulnerable than she had in years. I can't do it alone, and, well, you've always had good taste. Even if it's different from mine. I sat down heavily in the kitchen chair, trying to process everything. This was the first time Olivia had ever complimented me, even backhandedly. But maybe this was an opportunity. Maybe, through planning this wedding together, we could finally build the sisterly relationship we'd never had. Maybe Olivia had grown up, matured, learned to see beyond our parents' rigid teachings. As the wedding preparations progressed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every time I asked to meet Olivia's fiance, she had an excuse ready. He's too busy with work, she'd say. Or, he's visiting family out of town. After 3 weeks of this, I finally put my foot down. Olivia, I'm paying for this entire wedding. I need to meet the man my sister is going to marry. She rolled her eyes, but finally agreed. Fine. He can come for dinner tomorrow. To my surprise, David turned out to be perfectly normal. No religious zealotry, no cult-like behavior. He was a successful investor with kind eyes and a gentle manner. I found myself relieved. Maybe our parents had actually chosen well for once. After meeting David, I threw myself into the wedding preparations with renewed enthusiasm. I wanted everything to be perfect. I booked the city's most exclusive restaurant for the reception, hired the best florist in town, and spent a small fortune on a custom-made wedding dress that made Olivia look like she'd stepped out of a bridal magazine. 2 weeks before the wedding, I was walking past Olivia's room when I heard her laughing on the phone. I usually tried to give her privacy, but something in her tone made me pause. God, he's so boring, she was saying. All he talks about is work and investments. But he's loaded, Jenny. Like, seriously loaded. My blood ran cold as I listened. Obviously I'm going through with it, Olivia continued. Do you know how hard it is to find a guy this rich at 18? But don't worry, I've got my eye on some other guys too. What's wrong with having a little fun after the wedding? It's not like I'll be the first married woman with a few lovers on the side. I pushed the door open before I could stop myself. What did you just say? Olivia's eyes widened. Jenny, I'll call you back, she said quickly, ending the call. You can't do this, I said, my voice shaking. You can't marry David just for his money and then cheat on him. It's wrong. Oh, spare me your moral outrage, Olivia snapped. What did you expect? That I'd actually fallen in love with Mom and Dad's boring choice? I'm not stupid, I'm securing my future. By using someone? By lying to them? Get out of my house, she sneered. I stared at her. What? I don't need you anymore, you've paid for everything I wanted for the wedding. Oh, and by the way, I was going to tell you next week anyway, you're not invited to the ceremony. You're worthless and no one needs you. The words hit me like physical blows. After everything I've done for you? Everything you've done for me? Olivia laughed cruelly. Do you want a medal for being my guardian? These past 2 years have been torture. I wish they'd sent me to live with another family instead of you. She stood up, her face cold and hard, so much like our mother's that it scared me. You have 24 hours to pack your things and get out of my house. Don't make me call the police. I've never considered myself a vengeful person. All those years of my parents' cruelty, I never once thought about getting back at them. But something in me snapped that night. Maybe it was all the years of sacrifice, or maybe it was finally seeing Olivia's true colors. Before packing my things, I went to her room. The laptop she'd been so smug about claiming, my old laptop, was sitting on her desk, unlocked. It took me less than 10 minutes to find everything: her conversations with friends about using David for his money, explicit chats with other guys about their plans for after the wedding, screenshots of dating apps she was already using. I copied everything to my phone. Then I started making calls. First the florist, cancelled. Then the venue, cancelled. Finally, the restaurant. That one hurt, they could only refund half of my deposit. But I didn't care about the money anymore. Let Olivia try to rebook everything with just 2 weeks' notice. I checked into a hotel downtown, my few possessions packed into 2 suitcases. It felt strangely familiar, another escape from this house, this time for good. The next morning, my phone exploded with calls from Olivia. You spiteful thing, she screamed when I finally answered. You think this changes anything? I'm still getting married in 2 weeks. Oh, Olivia, I said calmly. You haven't seen anything yet. I hung up and opened my messages. I had David's number from the wedding planning. I attached all of Olivia's conversations and hit send. Then I waited. 3 hours later, Olivia called again. You ruined everything, she shrieked. You've always been jealous of me. Walking around in your frumpy clothes, with your ugly hair, I was always embarrassed to be seen with you. You're such a freak. I hung up and blocked her number. Then I blocked her on every social media platform, email, everything. It was over. I heard through mutual acquaintances that David called off the wedding immediately. Apparently, he'd shown Olivia's messages to his parents, and they were horrified. The wedding was cancelled, and with it, any chance of Olivia getting her hands on David's fortune. Not that she'll suffer too much. She still has our parents' house and their money. Knowing Olivia, she'll burn through that inheritance quickly. She's never worked a day in her life and has no plans to start now. But that's not my problem anymore. I couldn't stay in that city, surrounded by memories of two failed families, the one I was born into and the one I tried to create with Olivia. I packed everything I owned into my car and drove to Portland. It was far enough away to feel like a fresh start. Within a month, I had a job at a digital marketing agency and a small but cozy apartment overlooking the city. I'm dating again, casually this time, not rushing into anything. For the first time in my life, I'm completely free, no controlling parents, no ungrateful sister, no obligations except to myself.